Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at dynamic execution in Python. So you're probably wondering what that is. Well, dynamic execution is where the code you run changes during runtime. And you might think, oh, that's a bit like an if statement then. But no, this is completely different. This is where you get some value of the code based off maybe a file or something else. And the way you can do this are using eval and exec. Eval is easy to remember because it's evil, and exec is short for execution. So if we look at this notebook, the first thing we're going to do is define x, and unsurprisingly x has a value of 2. So now we're going to execute x times 2, and so you'd expect to get 4, but it hasn't done that because exec doesn't return anything. But if we run eval on x times 2, you see that we get 4 back. And so it's taken this string that we've put in, converted it into code, and then run it. But another thing we can do is we can say x, we multiply x by 3. And so if we put it with exec and eval, you see that it's worked with exec, which you can see as x is now 6. But with eval it hasn't worked. And that's because this doesn't make sense as a value. So exec is for executing lines of code, or multiple lines of code, and eval is for getting a certain expression. So you can see with exec, we can just import random and print a random number, and we get 22. So that's quite nice. Whereas with eval, we can't do that, because you see we end up with invalid syntax, because it can't evaluate that. However, we can eval random.randint, because we imported it using this exec command. And so you have to imagine that this line of code has already been run, which is what's happened. And you see we get 10. And it's recommended not to use eval, because if we run this line and we put in this string, so what it's going to do is it's going to then execute importing OS and printing the OS environmental variable OS and then exiting. And that could be quite dangerous because we could have changed this to os.environ to os.remove, or we could have looked at the path. And you can execute quite a lot of dangerous commands if you take an eval as an input, especially if the person using it knows that they can use exec. But there is something cool that you can do with eval, and that's you can create a calculator. So we're going to import re for regular expressions, and then we're going to have a calculation. So we enter the calculation and we strip it. And then we check that the string only contains 0 to 9, a minus, that's why this backslash is here, a plus, a multiply, a slash, or brackets. And we check that the string matches. And if it does, then we print the calculation and print equals, and then we work out what it is. But otherwise we say it's an invalid calculation. So if we, for example, put 3 times 5 plus 4, we can expect 27. But if we put in this command again, you can see we've got an invalid calculation. Another thing is if we try entering something that doesn't make sense in math, so if we do 3 plus 4 minus, then you see we get another error. But we can, of course, do nice maths. So you can see exec and eval are really powerful, but only if used correctly. You can, for example, have a general settings folder and then just run everything from there using exec maybe. And there are lots of other cool things that it does. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. You can see the power of these commands, but how that power can also be exploited. And I'll see you again, same time next week. Till then.